again. Welcome to another episode. Today we have very interesting topic all about Airbnb. But before I do that, first I'd like to bring my co-host on board, the resistance trader James Hanove. Hello James, good to see you again.
Hi, hello, good evening, good morning, good afternoon to everyone, wherever you are, whatever part of the world you are into. Thank you very much, Fermin, for the introduction. And yes, I would like to greet everyone in the show right now. Magandang araw, magandang tanghali, magandang gabi sa inyong lahat.
So yun, wag na natin patagalin pa. Before I bring our guest on board, let me just give a brief profile. So he has a degree in food technology and is also a certified medical transcriptionist. That's why yung guest natin, nung nag-umpisa siya magtrabaho, he held various posts in major food companies like Goldilocks, Pizza Hut, Shakey's. In fact, in 2009, he went to Saudi Arabia because he was asked to handle a manufacturing plant for the bread industry. And it was at that same time that he got his first investment property with SMDC. 2013, he returned to Manila, joined SMDC already full time, handling their international sales initiative. He has been a consistent top performer as evidenced by his recent promotion to Associate Sales Director for SMDC International Sales. And he basically travels the world as part of that job and also because of his advocacy of teaching others about financial literacy and how they can achieve financial freedom. So wag na natin patagalin pa. Let's bring on board Philip Pagon.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Good evening, James. Good evening, Fermin.
Hello.
Thanks for having me tonight.
Hi, Philip.
Oh,
Magandang
always a
gabi.
pleasure. So, Philip,
So,
umpisa na natin kasi I'm sure, Philip, wala ka pa sa, ano, sa video.
yeah.
Uh,
Let's just wait for him siguro while he's on it,
Yeah,
no? Ayan. I
no,
guess it's
napaka-interesting ng profile niya, no? From food
Oo nga,
technology, tapos he ended up in real estate.
real estate. Ito, akala ko nga nung sinabi mo, hindi ko nabasa yung ano, hindi ko nabasa yung air dun sa Airbnb. Akala ko BNB ang negosyo niya, bro, the Binance coin. Anyway, ito. Yeah. Hi, Philip. Welcome, bro.
Hi, guys. Good evening. Good evening. Hi, Fermin. Hi,
Hello,
uh,
hello.
James. Good evening.
Good
Can you
evening.
hear me now? Can you see me now,
Yeah,
too?
Yes, loud and
clear.
clear. Hey, so
Mm.
Philip, I have an interesting question. Given nga that your background was in food technology, diba? That's why you were in food companies. What prompted the shift to property?
Oh, naghang ng konti si Philip.
Philip, can you hear us?
Yeah, yeah. Just now, I've heard you. Ano yun? Sorry, I got lost, I think.
Yeah. Parang, given that your background is basically the food industry, syempre food industry tapos property, parang totally left field, diba? It's not related. So, what prompted you to make the career shift?
Yeah, for me, I've been working in the food industry for almost like if I'm not mistaken, around 7 years, and I think I got fed up. That's why I went back to the Philippines. And good thing when I went back to the Philippines, a friend who used to be my agent in Saudi Arabia asked me to join their team, and I was like thinking, I've been I've been inside the factory for quite a while. Like 7 years is too much, and I wanted to go out to meet a lot of people. That's why I've decided to be on sales because I think my skills and my talents are gearing towards being a salesperson. That's why I decided to be in sales.
Okay. I guess it's Fermin who went off right now. Baka at least we're having some
I'm
technical
back. I'm back.
difficulty. All right. Welcome
Yeah.
back, Fermin.
Yeah. Mhm.
So, narinig mo, Fermin, yung kinukwento ni Sir Philip, no, na yeah, he got back because he got a little tired and he saw his potential of becoming a salesperson. That's why he's ano no, he's very interested in becoming sales. Kaya nandito siya. And
Mhm.
siguro follow-up question ko na lang, sir, no, regarding this venture of yours, is having said that you are into sales, why real estate, by the way, if you don't mind me asking? Is it because of is it a passion or is there something else?
Yeah, actually, I just realized that uh, uh, being on real estate, ito yung pinaka-perfect kung bakit. It gives us time freedom. Like you could work anytime you want to work. You could work anywhere you want to work. And good thing is we have social media right now na pwede tayo magbenta ng property kahit nakaupo lang tayo sa bahay and all that. And among all the industries that like I've been to food industry, I've met a lot of people. Yung something na kapag ginawa mo, yung effort mo would give you yung equivalent niya would be amount of money, like the effort you make, like the money you would make too. Dito sa real estate, kapag mas marami kang kliyente, mas marami kang sales, definitely that would mean mas marami kang pera. So, yun yung nakapag-decide sa'kin, being in the real estate industry for 10 years now.
I see. Yeah, that's no no. Definitely a very very insightful answer. Kaya nga, yun nga, siyempre, when you started, nag-research ka, no? So you knew from the start that it's actually your industry you wanted to be into. Well,
Mm,
siyempre,
yeah.
because of the the potential gains that you ought to get. Anyway, sige, sir. Sir Fermin, you're back. Maybe do you
Yeah.
want to ask the
Oh,
first
sige,
question again?
let's start. Oh, so Philip, let's start with a simple one. What do you see as the benefits and at the same time the challenges of starting a rental property business through Airbnb?
Mm, okay. So to answer that for me, no, I think one of the benefits are I have here a list of benefits and challenges of being an Airbnb host or having an Airbnb business. Benefits would be first, of course, additional cash flow. So if you have a property which is intended for rental business, then definitely at the end of the day, at the end of the month, you'll get to collect additional income or additional cash flow. And what happens is that talking about additional cash flow, instead of you paying your mortgage, for example, you have it like you bought it for a pre-selling stage and it has been turned over to you and have it as a rental business. Instead of you taking out money from your pocket, you get it from the rent that you collect every month. Now, aside from that, of course, the flexibility. If you're doing this, you could do it at home because like Airbnb is just at the tip of your fingertips. So you could have clients inquiring for your property. All you have to do is to communicate with them and all that. Aside from that, of course, meeting people. When you have an Airbnb business, you get to meet a lot of people. Your guests would be coming from different parts of the world or even here in the Philippines. And lastly, I think having an Airbnb business is a learning experience wherein you get to have your own business. You get to meet people around you. And for the challenges, I think one of the challenge that we are facing if we are going to have, especially if it's an Airbnb rental business, would be which property are you going to choose? Because there are lots of property that you could dive into. Like you could have a house and lot, you could have a land property, a resort, a condominium property. I think on the onset, you have to know ano ba yung gusto kong property or ano ba yung gusto kong market, right? And also another challenge would be furnishing your unit. When I was starting, you know, the first property that was turned over to me, nakatenga siya for a year kasi I don't know what to do with it. And I don't have even experience of renting it out via Airbnb. Then pandemic came, and I came to realize since I'm always deployed like 11 months in a year. So ang nangyayari, sabi ko papa-furnish ko yung unit ko and then after ko ma-furnish, anong mangyayari? Kasi I was like thinking I'm going to stay on that property. But every time I would be in the Philippines, I would be together with my mom in our home. No, so ang nangyari, sabi ko, alis na naman ako. napa-furnish ko siya roughly around December to January, then February I have to leave. So ang nangyari, sabi ko, try ko nga i-list sa Airbnb. No? So that was the time when I started having this Airbnb business. No? Tapos, aside from that, challenges that we could face as an Airbnb host or having an Airbnb business, yung diverse guests or diverse client. Na sometimes, the other day sobrang puri yung guest sa'yo, 'di ba? Pero not all of us have or have the same standards. Yung iba puwedeng okay na sa kanila what you're having, yung iba, kulang na kulang pa yung mga pinagagawa mo, yung iba yung malinis na sa'yo is different from the malinis from other person. So I think isa sa mga challenges na na-experience ko. And of course, competition with a lot of properties that you could find here in the Philippines. No, ang tough ng competition and that's how kung paano ka kung paano mo yung market yung property mo, kung paano mo siya i-furnish, kung paano mo siya ipa-pricing, et cetera, et cetera. And of course, yung seasonal fluctuation since 'di ba merong mga times wherein tourists are less, no, especially during the time of pandemic. No, merong mga times na wala kang renter, matumal, malakas, no, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the benefits and those are the challenges that I've experienced on Airbnb business.
Well, I have a follow-up question to that, Philip, since you talked about the different types of properties. So what would be the key
Mhm.
factors when you're trying to select a property na pwede mong gawin pang Airbnb?
Yes. So the key factors would be, of course, first one, since this is a rental business, you need to check on the location of the property. Because the location will dictate kung sino yung magiging possible renters natin and how much will be the property rented. Say for example, kung bibili ka ng property within the metro, a condominium na malapit sa CBD or Central Business District like Makati, definitely there would be lots of renters kasi there are persons or lots of people who would go to their offices. No? So one market na would be them. And also kapag nasa Central Business District ka, yung accessibility easier, no? So if you are or if your property, especially kapag intended sa rental business, is on a perfect location, definitely the only thing that could happen to your property would be increasing in property value and of course increasing in rental rate, giving you good returns over the future, no? So aside from that, location, I think convenience, no? If you are going to offer convenience to your guests, lalo na, for example, yung property mo is located katabi ng MRT station or katabi ng LRT station, that would be a plus factor. Aside from that, if your property has its own mall sa lower podiums ng kanilang building, you're offering convenience, no? People would prefer a property which is really accessible and nandun lahat. Like for example, during the time of pandemic, di ba, there are lots of properties pero yung iba walang supermarket, no? If your property has its own supermarket, then it would be easier for our renters or possible guests, no? So aside from that, of course, gusto natin maganda yung magkakagawa aesthetically, no? Yung amenities na ino-offer natin dapat merong swimming pool and all that. Of course, it will give a plus factor to our renters. Yung furnish ng unit, of course, dapat sobrang maganda yung pagkaka-furnish kasi 'di ba? Like for example, tayo if we get to travel, first things first, kapag nag-check tayo ng Airbnb, we check ano ba itsura ng property. If maganda aesthetically, Instagrammable siya, then mas nagiging preference natin, right? And lastly, yung cost, no? Yung 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 main I think one of the first factors that we have to consider would be magkano ba yung magiging cost ng property? Would it fit my budget if I'm going to start having this property? So I think for me, those are the key factors that we have to consider if ever we're going to start an Airbnb rental business.
So, madami. Kumbaga, it's not something na simpleng gawin.
Right, right, tama.
May question lang
Yeah,
ako,
James.
Philip. Kasi since this is an Airbnb, this is real estate, did you actually conduct a study na Airbnb yung best platform to be on? Like others, because there are other platforms. So we will not be discussing it here for the
Mm.
second benefit that your topic is concentrated on BNB. But just that particular question na. parang why choose you yourself can actually sell it online since you yourself as is a brand is a brand. I mean like I believe you can claim as someone na merong ano no merong personality in the real estate business. And having said that, you probably can do your own platform or your own marketing without doing BNB or Airbnb to that point. And yun, why Airbnb?
Okay, why Airbnb? I think one of the best platform kung saan maghahanap ng properties would be Airbnb. Aside from they have been in the business for a long time already. Now, considering other platforms such as Agoda, you have Booking now, OLX Sulit. Like in the Philippines, you have Lamudi, etc., etc. I think Airbnb has a vast number of users already. Same as like going on social media. Like for example, Facebook has a lot of users. If you would compare it to other social media platforms, if you're going to advertise via Facebook, you would reach a more number of audience. It's same like having Airbnb. If you are thinking like the top of mind if you're going to think of something which is rentals which is short term, that's going to be Airbnb. So which makes Airbnb one of the best platforms to commerce to advertise your property. So and another thing that I have experienced personally is that Airbnb is really good because it does have its own statistics. Like for example, the pricing of the property within the area. There's a report also wherein you could know how many people have viewed your property, how many people are searching a property which is within your location. These things are really helpful. You being the host, so you could also adjust the prices accordingly. Like every time, like for example, Airbnb would say you have to lower down your price a little bit, then you would do it because it's actually based on statistics, based on their actual data that they're gathering.
But
Thank you.
I have
Very
a relate.
interesting.
I have a related question to that, Philip. Following
Mm,
what James said, Airbnb tama ka. It's transient, yung mga daily or weekly. Are you better off with an Airbnb rather than finding, let's say, a tenant who would lease your apartment for a year, 2 years? Diba? Kasi kumbaga, if you're looking at it from the perspective of passive income, if I have, let's say, a tenant who will take it for 1 or 2 years, at least alam mong for 2 years, sigurado ka. As opposed to Airbnb, I agree with you though na while it's a very robust platform, you still have to market it.
mhm. Yeah. Well, actually, for me, that depends on the possible, the possible owner of the property. Well, some, based on my experience, would have they want it to be secured, like for the rest of a year they have renter. While for some, like for me personally, I would rather up having an Airbnb which is short term or daily basis. First, if you are going to rent it for long term, rent would be lesser. Say for example,
Mm.
our property in Mall of Asia, a one bedroom unit there could be rented from 35,000 to 50,000 pesos in a month. Like if you're going, for example, if you're going to rent it in 1 year time, that's going to be 600,000 pesos, right? But if you are going to have it for Airbnb, a daily rent could play around 2,000 pesos to 5,000 pesos. Like depending on the demand, depending on which they are going to rent the property out. So say for example, if you are going to be rented for 2,000 pesos per day and you were occupied for say 20 days, that's how much? 40,000 pesos.
40. Yes.
And the unit is not fully used, right? Do you get me? The unit is
Yes.
hindi siya gamit na gamit. Bakit? Kasi in and out yung paglabas ng tao. I think having a short-term rental business would give you a bigger returns on your investment. And me personally, as I have experienced it, doing it short-term gave me a better result versus the long-term one.
Okay.
And that is through Airbnb.
Valid point.
And
Right.
yeah,
Valid.
and all I did was I just listed it via Airbnb, and I just followed what
Mm,
Airbnb tells me. Say, for example, in Airbnb, there's a thing called smart pricing, wherein all you
mm.
have to do is to put the minimum price of your property and the maximum price of property, and Airbnb will be the one who's going to dictate or is going to put the actual price on your daily rent.
Mm.
So sobrang ganda niya. For example, if Airbnb saw that the demand is really high, then yung price niya magiging mataas din. So during your low days, it would be compensated by high days since prices differs.
Interesting.
Yeah.
But tama ka, I think you're correct in pointing out that it boils down to the objective of the unit owner. Because if you have somebody
Yes.
who's after long-term security, then he may opt for the lower but less not headache, but
Yes.
less dealing with people dahil isa lang ang kausap niya. If you're after
Right.
the higher returns, then you go with the Airbnb option.
Right. Right.
So based on the characteristics you mentioned, is it safe to say na location would be your single most important factor?
For me, I think yes. Like it's not only in the Philippines. It's not only like the property in the Philippines. No, I think it's for all because I have traveled roughly around 23 countries already, and most of high valued property you could find it in perfect locations. Like for example, Central Business District. A property in New York would be higher if you would compare it to a property in Texas, right? A property in Makati would be higher in cost and in rent if you would compare it to property in Fairview or in the provinces like in Cavite. So I think location would be would is really a great factor in considering your Airbnb business.
Does that mean, Philip, for example, I have something in a good location, but maybe I don't have all of the amenities. And I have another one which has nicer amenities, but probably not as good a location. Chances are mas papatok pa rin yung better location.
Yes, I think better location mas papatok kasi bakit? Kapag better location 'yan, there's pool of people who's coming on that area, right? So marami tayong magiging possible renters.
James, you have a question?
Actually, wala naman ano. I'm just listening and enjoying how he presents the Airbnb business. Although we have some property that we are also looking at or managing. It's a new perspective since tama ka. Similar to how trading, I think similar to how trading goes. Mas malaki yung day trading. So mas malaki yung day rental kaysa yung ilo long term mo. But relatively the long term gives you a some sense of it's not necessarily pero meron kang parang safer safer way of doing it to go long term o mataas yung risk nung short term using via Airbnb. But sabi nga ni Philip kanina, mataas, mas rin, mas maganda din yung return kaysa dun sa long term.
Mm.
So yeah, I just did the parallel comparison since like we are into trading, he is into
Mm.
he is into real estate. Then that's what I find similar.
So, Philip, I've got another question. So, what would you say, given your expertise already and your experience in the Airbnb business, what are the essential steps needed to set up an attractive Airbnb? Given nga that you pointed out, sometimes you might not be in a nice location, but gusto mo
Mm.
i-Airbnb pa rin. So, what are the steps necessary to make your Airbnb as attractive as possible?
Okay, for me. So yung essential steps, I think, that we have to consider, even your property is not really on the primest location. Of course, we need to have to prepare our property. No? Tulad na nasabi ko sa inyo kanina, if your property is fully furnished and it's looking good, no, and maganda sa mata, I think people would still come on that property, no? Prepare your property, make it fully furnished na sobrang maganda sa mata, Instagrammable, lalong-lalo na ngayon na sobrang uso yung staycation. Even if your property is in the province, kapag maganda yung itsura for staycation, for short vacation, 'di ba? Pupunta yung mga tao. Aside from that, of course, kailangan maganda yung pagkakabigay natin sa internet, lalong-lalo na sa marketing, no? Since we are looking on photos only, dapat high quality yung photos natin. Dapat maganda yung pagkaka-picture natin doon sa property natin, no? Aside from that, of course, kailangan competitive yung price. Baka naman nagpa-price ka ng Metro Manila property pero nasa province ka, although sobrang ganda, but the thing is, are people on that area capable of renting that property out on that price? So we also have to consider kung sino yung magiging demographics or possible renters natin. Kaya ba nila yung prices na binibigay natin? Nung magka-competitive price tayo, checking on magkano yung prices ng hotels, magkano ba yung prices ng competition ko. Like for example, if I'm in Laguna, check yung mga properties that nakalist sa Laguna para malaman ko kung paano ko ipaprice yung property ko. No? So aside from that, of course, kailangan, once meron na tayong mga guests, no, we need to be, alam niyo yung 2-minute rule, na kapag nag-message sa'yo, kailangan mag-reply ka kaagad para hindi siya makuha ng iba. It's really important if you have your Airbnb business, no, kapag naghahanap sila ng properties, for example, urgent, no, ang gagawin mo, reply mo agad para sa'yo kagad mag-book yung magiging possible renters natin, no? Communication sa mga clients, sa mga guests is a must, no? Kailangan proactive tayo, no? Kailangan magilo tayo kasi it's like giving them hospitality since Airbnb is a hospitality service. Of course, at the end of their kunyari nag-rent sila sa atin, of course, after that, we would ask them na i-review tayo. We would ask them na i-5-star tayo dun sa rating natin para pag prinomo tayo ng Airbnb, we are on top, no, as top host sa Airbnb, no? So pakita natin on reviews na sobrang uh, uh, sobrang ganda ng pagstay nila or sobrang ganda na experience nila with our own Airbnb listing. So these are the things I think that you have to consider, especially kapag mag-start tayo ng Airbnb rental business.
Ayan ha, narinig ninyo. Very insightful. Now, you mentioned reviews, Philip. I have a question. Because syempre, tayo naman, we've all stayed in whether Airbnb or hotels here and abroad. And tama ka, you're not always going to be happy. So what happens if somebody gave a bad review? Do you have like, could you reach out to the person, find out what can be done to make it better, and do they actually change the review?
Unfortunately, if somebody reviewed you, hindi na siya na-erase doon sa Airbnb platform. So what you could do, you could reply on the review. And sometimes, if you have 1 star or
Para palang blockchain,
yeah,
ano? Immutable na pala to.
Immutable.
Fermin, hindi raw nabubura.
oo,
Hindi raw
hindi
Hindi na
nabubura.
matatanggal.
hindi na siya matatanggal. And sad thing, kapag nagpapublish talaga siya within span of 12 to 15 days yung review niya, kahit hindi mo i-review yung guest mo, magsasubmit siya ng review. So what you could do is magre-reply ka dun sa review niya and you let the people know what happened. And sometimes if that happens, like for example, a guest rated you for 1 star or 2 stars, Airbnb would message you and Airbnb would ask you kung ano yung nangyari doon sa review natin kung bakit mababa. And it would tell you na kailangan bigyan ng pansin and you have to explain kung ano nangyari. No, if everything goes well, na-explain mo naman ng maayos, then walang problema. But the thing is, yung review niya nandun na talaga. So ang magagawa mo na lang magre-reply ka kung what happened on that particular instance.
No, the reason I asked that is because recently when I went abroad and I stayed in a hotel which had a favorable review based on another platform. Hindi na natin sasabihin which platform. The thing was, when I got to the hotel, parang totally different from any picture that I saw on the platform. And so I literally, even though I had paid for one night, I left. Sabi ko, I cannot stay here.
Mm.
This is nothing close to what you have posted on that platform. And I told the platform, pero I didn't get na any response from the platform. So let's leave it at that. That's why I was interested to know how Airbnb handles that, because yun nga, you for sure not everybody is going to be happy, di ba? Because tama ka nga, people have different wants and needs, are very subjective. What might be fantastic for me might be
Mm.
mediocre for James.
Yeah, right. And also for me, what's good about Airbnb is that hindi siya one-sided, no? Two-sided siya. Although me as a guest, me as a host gives money to Airbnb as well as the guest would give money via the renting. Meron siyang two sides, no? Every time, for example, my Airbnb account as a host is also my Airbnb. Parang isa lang siya eh. Host ka tsaka guest. So every time you would rent a property, nire-rate ka or chine-check ka ni Airbnb kung ano mga ginagawa mo. So there was one instance wherein I rented the property, and the thing is merong neighbor, actually it's a house, no. Merong neighbor na on the entire business pala nung may-ari ng property na yon, nirereklamo sila sa Airbnb. So what Airbnb did was parang in-stop niya yung listing ko, yung Airbnb listing ko. And ang sabi sa akin ng Airbnb, meron daw nag-complain. Although we were warned by the host na baka possible na i-complain kayo, pero I didn't know that my property would be affected. The property which I listed also was stopped or parang naka-pause because of that complaint. Pero maganda kasi kinuha niya yung side ng tao na yon and I explained what happened. So nag-i-investigate talaga si Airbnb. Fair enough, kung ano yung totoo, yun naman yung ginagawa nilang decisions. So win-win situation. If you are a host or if you are a renter or a guest, meron ding si Airbnb, they have a thing called air cover. For example, may nasira si guest natin. For example, nasira yung sofa and the guest doesn't want to hindi siya nag-a-amend na nasira niya yung sofa. What will happen is that Airbnb will pay the amount of sofa. Sila yung magko-cover ng charge kapag hindi
So
nag-meet
parang may
halfway.
insurance. Para
Yan,
siyang
may
may insurance
insurance.
of some sort.
Right, right.
Okay, okay.
Nice, huh?
So yan
That's
ha.
a very nice.
Mm.
So yan, ang dami na nating nuggets na nakuha kay Philip kung paano mag-umpisa ng Airbnb. James, you want to ask the next question
Sure.
sa pricing?
So regarding kanina kasi nakwento na siguro nakwento na ni Philip yung about sa pricing. Since 'di ba sabi niya may sinusunod na statistics and may kumbaga may in-house analysis ang Airbnb with regards to price and the strategy. Pero siguro to expound on that one, ano yung pricing strategy and factors like an aspiring Airbnb host should take into account para ma-maximize yung kita sa Airbnb?
Okay, James. Thank you very much for that question. Ito sobrang effective ito and based on my experience. No, if you are a first-time host on Airbnb, nagsasuggest siya. Sabi niya, on your first 2 or 3 bookings, dapat magbigay ka ng 10% or 20%. So kapag ginawa mo yon, Airbnb would push your listing to possible clients. Kasi I have experienced that. Ginawa ko, sige magbigay nga ako ng 10% discount. So nagbigay ako ng 10% discount in 1 day time when I first published my listing, meron ako renter. And so forth and so on. Sabi niya, on your second, magbigay ka at least 5%, etc., etc. Airbnb would tell you to do that. And all you have to do is to follow. No? Aside from that, another thing that you have to consider is yung term of, like for example, yung length of rent. No? If rent would be longer, I think it's perfect that you're going to give discount as well. No? So kina-count din yun ni Airbnb. Airbnb would tell you, Philip, kapag 1 month, give certain discount para mas maraming tao ang pumunta sa'yo. Which is true enough. Ginawa ko, kapag 1 week rent siya, meron siyang additional 10% discount, or kapag 1 month rent siya, meron siyang 20% discount. So, bumababa yung price, yes, pero ang maganda diyan mas maraming tao ang nai-interest kasi parang at the back of their mind, ang laki ng interest, ang laki ng discount na makukuha ko, 20%, which make it competitive doon sa pricing. And if you wanted to get away with the problem of paano ko ba gagawin yung price ko, kailan ba ako mag-i-start, aside from doing manually, no, checking on the listing of other people. Instead of doing that, Airbnb would suggest also, ano ba yung minimum price in this area? Ano ba yung minimum price on this property? And then, there is, ano ba yung maximum price na pwede nating ilagay? Na ako, sometimes yung minimum price hindi ko sinusunod kasi gusto ko higher, and that's okay. Pero ang maganda kay Airbnb, yung tinatawag na smart pricing, wherein Airbnb would tell or would decide kung magkano yung price niya on specific day. So, it changes every now and then. As long as you have your minimum and maximum price, Airbnb will be the one is going to mag-dictate or magbibigay ng pricing. And talking about pricing, of course, the value that we are getting on Airbnb is not, hindi yun yung hindi yun yung full price. Yung binabayaran ni guest natin, of course, meron niyang charges. Airbnb has its own charges. Meron siyang 3% na china-charge. Meron niyang cleaning fees that we have to consider. So, yung price na binigay mo, mababawasan pa yan through the service of Airbnb, of course, and yung mga cleaning services natin. So, we have to consider that too, no, kapag nag-price ka tayo.
All right.
Pero it's good because at least you point out that Airbnb as a platform also provides a number of services to their users or to those that also provide units. So that's good naman. Parang property
Right.
management kumbaga.
Actually, what I noticed doon sa sharing ni Philip, this is yung sagot, ito yung isa sa mga possible na reason niya. Why go Airbnb? Nandun na halos lahat ng metrics, pricing,
Correct.
marketing that support that he needs to. So that gives. So yes. Thank you very much for that answer, Philip. So ayun, ako for me, I don't have any question, but I'm very happy to have Philip as guest here. We've got a new insight about the
Right.
Airbnb as a business.
Well, again, thank you very much, Philip. I'm sure everybody has learned a lot, but syempre, I'm sure something like this, hindi pa nila naisip lahat ng gusto nilang itanong. If people wanted to reach you and learn more, how can they get in touch with you?
Okay, if you wanted to learn more about, of course, not only about Airbnb, but about having a property which is really profitable, you could reach me via Facebook. My name is Philip Pagon on Facebook, and also my mobile number is or my WhatsApp and Viber would be 0998-558-1294. You could also follow my page. I have a page called Airbnb Business Solutions. Pwede nyo rin ako dong i-reach out kung saan I give free training. I'll be giving free seminars about purchasing your property, having a property which is really profitable, and of course, renting your property out through Airbnb business.
Oh, excellent.
Right?
So,
Very
viewers, narinig niyo,
very
nagbibigay ng seminars na libre.
nice. Sige. Ayun. So, thank you very much again, Philip, for gracing our show for tonight. Okay. So, that on behalf of Saijen, thank you very much. And of course, thank you to the community who's watching us right now. Stay tuned for more.
Okay. Thank you again. Bye, everybody. Safe travels tomorrow,
Thank you
Philip.
very much. Thank you very much,
Okay.
Jen.
Bye.
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 Bye-bye.